we can get right into it. I mean, Roosevelt University, like I'll tell you between us, I don't know about Jimmy, you being from down there, but I didn't know anything about it. And then I see this news that, potentially they're going to be the next team in the conference. Learning that it was right in downtown Chicago was really cool, but I guess just from you right off the bat, what made them a great fit for what we have going on here in the GLIAC?
Yeah, so I mean, you mentioned it. They're downtown Chicago. They will be the first Division II school in Chicago, right? So they're in a good spot as far as our footprint goes. And when you look around the landscape of where we are and who's around us, and if we want to try to add teams, again, I talked about it a little bit last time. It's hard to get teams to want to schedule against you guys. So the way that we kind of fix that is to expand, right? We want to add teams, and Roosevelt, great university. They're in a really good spot, right? They've got a pretty solid enrollment, and they've been around for a while, and great president, great AD, great athletics programs, and we are certainly excited to get them in the fold. They'll be members here on our 2024 schedules. They'll be incorporated into those. So we are definitely excited to add them to the GLIAC, and again to get someone else on you guys' schedules for you guys to have another opponent here in the fall.
Yeah, that's huge. And I'm just peeking. Oh man, what's that? I'm peeking right behind you there. What you got on the bookshelf back there? What's that helmet?
Which one? I got a couple. So
right. There's the white and there's the black underneath.
Yep. So there's a black one there. That's the Football Media Day. It's got the Detroit logo on it with the GLIAC down the middle.
Ooh, can we get a look at that?
Yeah, I can.
You ain't seen that Nystrom go on.
Yeah.
I didn't. Nystrom got one of those.
Easy way to do it. Yeah, Nystrom has one. It's a
Nystrom
got the GLIAC logo on it and some
in the coach's
Detroit
office.
flair.
I didn't even see that.
Yeah, go to Kyle's office and check
That's
that
clean.
out.
I like
and
that.
Then,
okay.
Up above, the white one is I was an administrator at Butler and Butler University in Indianapolis, and I've got a Bulldog helmet up there, and then I've got a smaller, near and dear to my heart, my alma mater, Walsh University helmet back there as well. So
I love it. You got to set up. You look like you're ready for TV, man.
Hey, man, one day. I'm ready for the pod. TV one day.
Good stuff. You talked about it a little bit, the process of admittance for Roosevelt, and it was interesting for me to see that process being approved to Division II next July before anything's even able to happen, and they can, like you said, come into our schedule in 2024. Is that as lengthy of a process because they're coming over from that NAIA and not from a NCAA Division III or something along those lines?
Yeah, so that's how the process works. If you want to go from NAIA to D2, it's a provisional. You enter into a provisional membership process. It's a 3-year process. Right, year one, you got to prove that you have certain staffing or you meet certain staffing requirements and facilities and operations budgets and scholarship budgets and all things of that nature. And then right, year 2 and 3, you kind of get into the fold, like I said. So they'll remain NAIA here for 23-24 as far as their schedule goes, and then they can actually compete in our schedule starting 2024, and they count as a D2 opponent while they go through that provisional process, which is huge for us.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. I guess I haven't really heard of a lot of teams. I just mean like making that jump in general, but that's pretty sweet information. Now, I will say they're not bringing just football, right? They've got, I think it said 15 GLIAC sponsored sports that they're bringing as a whole. So it's much more. I mean, we're a football based podcast. We're biased, you know what I mean? But like that's a big addition for GLIAC everywhere. It's not like we're going to be the only ones making that trip down there to Chicago.
Absolutely, man. Roosevelt, right? They're going to come in and they're going to try to compete across the board. So obviously we're here to talk football, but like you said, in addition to football, they've got pretty much everything. They sponsor a ton of sports, and I think they're going to be able to come in and be competitive. And again, being in Chicago, I think they're going to be able to recruit the Chicagoland area really well, again, being the only Division II in that area. So I think they're going to come in and hopefully make a splash right away.
No, it's huge. I know, we've got 2 guys sitting over here that are both Chicago guys. That's an interesting piece for us. We have a lot of guys from that Chicago area. I know Wayne State recruits that area pretty heavily as well, correct? Yeah. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that affects the recruiting landscape as far as the rest of the GLIAC teams. But on that same topic, football-wise, NAIA making that jump to Division II, I got to wonder if I don't know how much you can say about this, but were there schools like a Concordia Ann Arbor or a Siena Heights that were part of that conversation too when you first, started exploring these options?
Yeah, I mean, we're open to, and this is not just a GLIAC thing, but Division two in general, right? We've seen over the past couple months, schools are not just at the D2 level, but schools are jumping ship and going D1, and then D1's obviously you've got USC and UCLA who
Yep.
are going from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. But I mean, that's just the name of the game in today's college athletics layout that we're currently in, and there, I mean, right, there are NAIA schools throughout Michigan. There are other NAIA schools throughout the Midwest, which again, if they fit our scope and they can compete athletically and they're a good academic fit, and right, we are always looking for private schools, and we obviously are dominated by state schools, which is great for us, right? But anybody who can be a good fit for the GLIAC, whether the NAIA, Division two, whomever it is, we are always looking to have a conversation.
Yeah, 100%. You kind of touched on what I want to talk about too, on that private and like that state school dynamic, which is interesting, and that's something that's been, at least from, I can't call myself an outsider, but from an outsider's point of view, like looking at the GLIAC, that's been a key factor in what schools stick around in the GLIAC and what don't. Oh, we lost it.
Sorry about that, fellas.
You're good.
I mean, 1 second. My lights are they're automatic. 1 second.
That's funny. You got motion detectors in there?
I do. I'm too far from I'm too far from the sensor though, so I had to just do it on my phone real quick.
You're good, man. That's funny. I thought we lost you. At least we got you on here, because that would have been more work. But no, you're good. But I was just talking about the private schools versus the state schools, like you were saying, and where the funding comes in that department, and that's something that's been a challenge for a lot of schools. Northwood most recently being a smaller private school. Now Roosevelt, they've got an enrollment of over 4,000. So they're definitely not in that same level as Northwood, which is under 2,000. I want to say undergrad for sure, right?
Yeah. I mean, again, NAIA private, whether you're private, it doesn't matter. Like you just said, you could be in Northwood's boat, which they're not as well off as Roosevelt is as far as the enrollment piece goes. But
yeah,
again, Northwood, they're in a steady spot, right? They're fine. They'll be fine. That's who they are, right? But it really, right? We have you guys, right? Northern Michigan. We have our other big state schools. You guys aren't really worried about what the enrollment piece looks like. You guys will be just fine. And
yeah,
you hit on the funding piece, right? The funding looks totally different compared to or a state school compared to a private school. But right, there are a lot of schools right now, especially coming out of COVID, who are their mission is really focused on the enrollment piece and how they drive that. But I mean, at the end of the day, we could all use more students, right?
Yeah, especially when you go, it's like the further you get down levels of football wise, the more that filling beds becomes a priority for sure. You see some of these Division III teams, even ones that have really good programs, like a Mount Union, I think is a really good example. They'll bring in over 100 guys in a freshman class, and like a lot of guys, obviously they weed out, they don't make it onto the roster, but they're probably going to stick around, go to school, and that's right here, right? That's money in the pocket of the school. That it's a business at the end of the day. We get that for sure.
Yep.
But
I mean.
No, go for it.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, and that's right. You hit the nail on the head, right? That's at the end of the day, it's about filling those beds, and again, if schools are right, don't matter if you're a school who's comfortable with 2,000 or 4,000 or 20,000, right? As long as you're filling those beds and you're comfortable where you are, that's the name of the game.
100%. Now, the big thing with that is being what people call fully funded, right? Division II, you're allowed, that certain amount of scholarships, so that the equivalencies of your school's tuition. Now, a lot of those schools, especially like some of those Ohio schools that used to be members of the GLIAC, that I feel like was a big reason that they had dropped out in the past. Your alma mater, Walsh, being one of them. And I think that's a dynamic that, obviously you guys never hope for that to happen, because you want to retain a lot of your members, if not all of them, correct? So how do you, looking forward going into that, how do you kind of address that and make sure you retain some of those members?
Yeah, I mean, again, the fully funded piece and not being fully funded, partially funded, whatever you want to call it. Again, we want to be competitive across the board. We don't just want to bring schools in. Obviously, we want to get new members into the GLIAC and continue to grow the GLIAC, but we want to be competitive across the board. So the more member institutions that we can bring in who look like GLIAC and look like what we want the GLIAC to look like moving forward, right? Obviously, we're looking for stable schools, and schools who are, right, NAIA schools, they don't want to make the jump if they're not stable and they're not comfortable with where they are in enrollment, right? They're focused on enrollment and how we can drive that. and maybe athletics is the answer there. But the fully funded piece or partially funded piece, it honestly depends on the school's comfort level. And as far as the GLIAC goes, we want to continue to bring in schools who look like us and look like what we want to look like moving forward.
Yeah, no, I like that. And you heard, I mean, every coach, I think, at GLIAC Media Day was talking about, that was their fallback. Well, this is the best football in the country, D2. This is the best football in the country. And I love that because they all mean it. They're all like, that's conviction. Like, they all believe that. And I do too. I think we all do. But, Ty, you got something?
How you doing, Cam? I got a question as far as what goes into the process of Roosevelt joining the GLIAC, and how long is that process? Because me being from the Chicagoland area, I know them as Robert Morris, and they just recently became Roosevelt University, and I'm wondering if them rebranding into Roosevelt was that them trying to make the jump to Division II? Like, what all goes in? Does that tie in at all, or I just want to know the process of them coming in?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, again, you have to hit certain thresholds as far as staffing and scholarship budget, facilities, the whole, like, you have to fit, again, not the GLIAC, you have to fit the D2 mold, right? So again, there with the GLIAC, right, we have one piece where we're going to say, hey, we will approve this school based on these factors, but the NCAA, they're going to look at it and say, hey, you guys can become Division II if you meet this certain criteria, right? So I know that Roosevelt and Robert Morris kind of combined, or whatever the case happened there. Honestly, I'm not sure if that was part of their plan to end up at some point going Division II, but here we are, right? So again, they are where they are now, and for all we know, they are Roosevelt, and this is the Roosevelt we started having a conversation with a while back, and they want to go Division II and they want to be part of the GLIAC, right? So again, they go through that provisional membership process, and as long as they can meet the criteria once they get to the end of the 3 years, hopefully the NCAA says, hey, you're ready, and you can come out of that provisional status and become a full D2 member.
Yeah, I didn't know that right off the top, but I know I had definitely heard Robert Morris before. I guess I didn't realize that's over with, huh?
Yeah, they merged until I don't want to say 2 years ago.
Yeah, okay. Good stuff. But I did want to touch on, too, is that you talked about how crucial them being in Chicago was and expanding that, I guess, geographic footprint of the GLIAC. How much of a consideration was that, even if it's going to be some long-ass bus rides for the boys up in the UP. But, with that being said, how important is that to not only expand it as far as membership goes, but as, just to really branch out? Because at one point, schools in Illinois, in Ohio, Indiana, those types of states, and now we've been really contained into Michigan. How important is it to get back out and expand that footprint?
Yeah, I mean, again, if there are members or potential members, again, Chicago. So if we look at Chicago, it's honestly, I don't know if you guys have put it in your GPS yet, but it's not a terrible drive. I remember being on a bus from Walsh. Yeah, it's not terrible. I remember being on a bus from Walsh up to Marquette, and that was one of the longer bus rides, and a lot longer than I'd like to sit on a bus. But the Chicago Marquette, Chicago Lake State will be the longest trip. It's not terrible. And again, I know Purdue Northwest, Wisconsin Parkside, they don't have football, but Purdue Northwest is a rock throw from where Roosevelt is. So, right, we've already got schools who are making the drive. You guys in basketball and all your other sports, you're making the drive down to Purdue Northwest and vice versa. Right, yeah. Not a terrible drive. So, again, with that being said, geographically, right, we want to do what makes sense. We don't want to put our members in a bind. And when we go through this process, right, it isn't a, hey, Roosevelt says they want to be in, and our commissioner is like, okay, you're welcome, right? No, it has to be vetted, right? It goes through a process. It goes through the membership committee, right? Our presidents are involved, and if it doesn't make sense as far as a geographic footprint goes, then certainly we won't put our student athletes in a position where they're sitting on the bus for way too long or missing too much class time. We want to continue to add members that make sense and kind of fit the mode of where we want to continue to expand. And again, we want to continue to create a great student athlete experience. So we don't want you guys sitting on buses for 80
You're
hours.
Not going to be ferrying us across the country for every conference game like the Bruins and the Trojans out there in California?
If we had the PJs that the Bruins and the Trojans had, we would certainly probably jump on that. But unfortunately, Unfortunately, we don't have that kind of money yet.
Not yet.
Yeah. Hey, emphasis on yet,
Yeah.
huh?